Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Thank you for listening to us. Remember that you can listen to us on TuneIn Radio Live also. Just type in UCY TV and it'll pop us right up. We're live every morning there also, 8 a.m. This morning I had scheduled with this Carl Grossman, and something came up last minute with him. We're going to reschedule. I haven't set the date yet. But so that means that we can open up the phone lines in case anybody wants to talk about whatever on their heart. The number is 718-717-8106, and I'm going to share with you some information. Hold on just one second. I'm going to mute this a second. I want to move my microphone a little bit closer so I can look at the screen. I dug up some things because this was kind of last minute. I went right to the internet and said, okay, so what's happening? I thought I'd look at the old EPA since our dear leader is got his wrecking ball cabinet and intent on destroying every system that's been set up during the New Deal, since the New Deal. And here is something that I found that was very interesting. I just typed in nuclear waste. And I went to the EPA, and there is a ground permit. This is very interesting. Let me see, where's the other one, the home one. There is two of them that I wanted to share with you because this was really interesting. It's called Class 4 Shallow Hazard and Radioactive Injection Wells. Public notice, administrative record for the Dewey Burdock Class 3 and Class 5 injection well draft area permits. Listen to this. This is very frightening what they're going to do. There's another one also. The EPA Region 8 is requesting public comment by May 19th. So those of you that are living in Region 8 in this area of South Dakota and Wyoming, please call on 2 underground injection control draft area permits, and those are called UIC, and 1 associated proposed aquifer exemption decision for the Dewey Burdock uranium in situ recovery site located near Edgemont, South Dakota, under the authority of the Safe Drinking Water Act and the UIC program regulations. The Dewey Burdock site is located in the southwestern Custer County and northwestern Fall River County on the Wyoming-South Dakota border. And it gives you their address there. It says, the EPA Region 8 UIC program is issuing 2 draft UIC permits to PowerTech USA, Inc. from Greenwood, Colorado for injection activities related to uranium recovery. 1 is a UIC Class 3 area permit for injection wells for the ISR of uranium, and the second is a UIC Class 5 area permit for deep injection wells, that's called fracking, that will be used to dispose, listen to this, deep injection wells that will be used to dispose of ISR process waste fluids into the Peninsula Formation after treatment to meet radioactive waste and hazard waste standards. The EPA is also proposing an aquifer exemption approval in connection with the Class 3 area permit to exempt the uranium-bearing portion of the Indian Kara Group aquifers. That leads right into Native American lands. To exempt uranium-bearing portions. This is so outrageous. Wow, this makes me spit nails. Okay, so let's go on because it says written comments must be received by midnight, May 19th. And you guys can go to the EPA website and let's see, what's the drop-down menu? Just type in under UIC. You could type in UIC, I'm sure, and find it. And the title of this is Public Notice, Administrative Record for the Dewey Burdock Class 3 and Class 5 Injection Well Draft Area Permits. So we definitely need people to send in some letters. There's a whole list of places where to write. And let's see, they are having meetings. The EPA will hold the following public hearings at the time, dates, and locations listed below. So there's one today, Thursday, from 4 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. at the Niobrara Lodge in Valentine, Nebraska. Then there's Monday and Tuesday, May 8th and 9th, from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. Wow, that's a long meeting. The Best Western Ramkota Hotel in Rapid City, South Dakota. Wednesday, May 10th, the Mueller Center in Hot Springs, South Dakota. And Thursday, May 11th, St. James Catholic Church, Edgemont, South Dakota. Wow. They're really just like blasting our mother, aren't they? They're just doing whatever they can to just poison our planet at a nonstop pace. It's a shock. Why? I don't know why I'm shocked, but I am shocked. And I don't know if any of you follow E&E News, but I thought I pulled this right up as soon as I found out that it probably wasn't going to work with me and Carl this morning, that he had something come up. I went to E&E News because they're our go-to place for Fukushima updates, right, about nuclear and stuff. That's where most people go, is E&E News. This was an article published April 26th, and this is a government-funded public broadcaster of Turkey reported this, of Turkey. Isn't that where Orgadon is? That's very interesting. Uh-oh. It's going to pull up a YouTube video. I don't want that. Hold on.
Radiation alert.
Let me read to you what this says. This is kind of a shock. What they are planning on doing is they want to drop the water tanks directly into the Pacific Ocean, which is something Kevin Blanch has been screaming about for years. And in fact, he believes that when it rains, and most of us do, that when it rains and pours over there in Japan, they just open up those tanks and let them all leak. So this is why we have high levels of animal deaths in our country right now. So it says, as far away as the American Pacific coast, there have been radiation levels found in fish, and radiation plumes have been tracked that have been detected on the shores of Oregon. This whole story goes on to talk about how they've been lying about the levels of radioactive contamination. And it says, it still leaks. These reactors are now leaking really high levels of radiation into that water. Now that water goes out to the sea and is relatively diluted. We know that. You know, the fish are getting contaminated. In a way, we are lucky that this radiation is going into the sea. Now it's a vast amount. They're now getting to the point where they're beginning to talk of just wanting to drop the tanks of contaminated water into the ocean because they can't just keep building these tanks, which is something we knew. Unless they want to, they can't build high risers of the tanks. I mean, this is such a grave emergency. Fukushima is such a grave emergency. Every single country ought to be having their best and brightest scientists coming together to figure this out. The fact that we are ignoring Fukushima, I think, is a psychosis in our country. In fact, in our planet right now, we have a intense level of denying. So let me give you out the phone number in case anybody wants to give us a call. It's 718-717-8106. And if you call in and love Trump, I'll go easy on you. But I don't know how anybody can really love what this guy's doing. He's breaking up the New Deal. He's actually, the fact that he's not staffing the State Department is a frightening issue, because the State Department is what keeps us informed and aware and out of conflict. And it seems that this guy, I mean, it's ironic that people said that Trump would be better than Clinton because they thought that she would just drag us to war. Well, we're 100 days, less than 100 days in, and we're all just wondering when he's going to start something with North Korea, or God forbid, all of his sticky dealings with Russia, who Russia is going to ask him to start bombing. God knows. I mean, the guy has obviously been coerced. So the nepotism that is going on is unconscionable. His daughter Ivanka has been shown to pay people something like $60 a week in China. That's still slave labor by any means, folks. $60 a week is still $60 a week. So, we're in deep here, very, very deep, and it's going to take us. It's really going to take us to stand up and tell people to leave uranium in the ground. The climate change, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, the climate change model, the climate change protests that they did, there was a lot of pro-nukers. Like, I saw Bill Nye standing up, like, we can stand up, we're going to stand up for science, and we're going to make this work. And it's beyond comprehension that Bill Nye, the science guy, is not super freaked out about Fukushima. That will tell you the state of our science community. Here's a man who has worldwide recognition as a science geek, and he's doing absolutely zero to talk about Fukushima. The Olympics are going to go on. They're building stadiums out of reclaimed wood in Fukushima. That's highly radioactive. Like, that's just, let me type in this thing of Nami, Japan relocation, see what they're doing, if there's any of illnesses. Let's just see if we can pop up anything on here. Let's see, this was dated when? That's October 26th. There's absolutely nothing coming out of this place. They have sealed it up quite tight there. There's articles saying that the Japanese government is forcing people to move back in. And let's read that again, just to remember who our so-called friends are in the Japanese. Let's just read what they're doing to their own people. I mean, this is just incomprehensible. The Japanese government is literally coercing people to move back in to Fukushima. The Japanese government is forcing people to move back into areas with up to 10 times maximum nuclear workers' annual radiation exposure limit. Residents will be exposed to the equivalent of one chest X-ray per week. Wow. That is unconscionable. One chest X-ray a week. Wow. Even Greenpeace has reported on it. That is unbelievable. February 2017, Greenpeace came out with a story that said the Japanese government will soon lift evacuation orders for 6,000 residents of Itate village in Fukushima Prefecture, where the radiation levels in nearby forests are comparable to the current levels within the Chernobyl 30-kilometer exclusion zone, an area more than 30 years after the accident remains formally closed to habitation. 75% of Itate is contaminated forested mountains. 70%. A recent Greenpeace Japan-led survey team found radiation dose rates at houses in the village of Itate well above long-term government targets, with annual and lifetime exposure levels posing a long-term risk to citizens who may return. Evacuation orders will be lifted no later than March 31st, 2017, to be followed 1 year later by the termination of compensation payments. Wow. So they're going to cut them off. They're going to force them to go live in this place. And then I guess the message is die quickly. The relatively high radiation values both inside and outside houses show an unacceptable radiation risk for citizens if they were to return to Itate. The citizens returning to their irradiated homes are at risk or receiving radiation equivalent to 1 chest X-ray a week. This is not normal or acceptable, said Ai Kashawagi, energy campaigner with Greenpeace Japan. As Japan nears the 6 years from beginning of the nuclear disaster, the Japanese government last week confirmed it has not yet conducted any assessments of lifetime exposure risks for citizens if they were to return to Itate. So they've had 6 years. They forced people to go into these areas and repopulate it, and they're cutting them off from compensation in a year from now. But they have not conducted any assessments of lifetime exposure risk for citizens. You know why? They don't need to. They know they're killing their citizens. That phone's going to ring 6 times, you guys. I apologize for that. It's been a hectic morning, so I'm just going to keep on, and you're going to have to listen to it ring 6 times. So, the Greenpeace Japan survey results are based on thousands of real-time scanning measurements, including of houses spread over the Itate region. This data was then used to calculate a weighted average around the house, which was then computed to give the annual exposure rates and over a lifetime of 70 years. Wow, so even that is very, very conservative. Listen to this. The Greenpeace Japan survey results are based on thousands of real-time scanning measurements, including of houses spread over the Itate region. This data was then used to calculate a weighted average around the houses, which was then computed to give an annual exposure rate and over a lifetime of 70 years. As if they're going to live 70 years. They are not going to live 10 years. Taking into account radioactive isotope decay, there is a real hardcore reason why people are not allowed inside that 30-kilometer zone at Chernobyl, because it kills people. The children there are going to start dropping off like flies. That is unconscionable. I honestly... Oh, here's another one. Chernobyl radiation refugees also being forced to move back into radiation-contaminated areas. So I guess the IAEA has decided that they are going to just normalize radioactive contamination. And we are not going to talk about how radiation harms everything on this planet, how it is likely one of the major causes of so-called climate change. I'm actually really, the more I think about this and read about it, there has been absolute dulling silence on the negative effects of radioactive contamination on global climate change, on affecting our atmosphere and the way our oceans are interacting with our Mother Earth. Zero. No one has even talked about it. It's unconscionable. It's really, really unconscionable. I'm a student in a classroom, and when I talk about radioactivity, everybody's eyes glaze over. They don't want to hear about it. Well, people have to hear about it. St. Louis still has a gaping, burning hole, and those elected officials there are still. How long? This has been almost 2 years that I've known about it, and they're just dragging their heels. There are children being born and getting sick in St. Louis right now from radioactive contamination. People don't even know the exposure rates that they're having. And I think the nuclear industry's offset is that, oh, don't worry, it takes a long time for it to happen. So you'll be able to live a decent life until then, until you watch your children drop off like flies around you. Wow. Let me see what this says. There's a little map that says specific radiation measurements of food and soil performed by Greenpeace. So I'm going to open up that little map and see if we can see what it says. Oh my gosh. Well, folks, we are definitely being radiated seriously bad. This is just unbelievable. This is a weird little interactive map that gives me no information. So the number is it's not 541, that's my office number. The number is 718-717-8106. You're listening to Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. And I guess you can call in if you want to. I was supposed to have a guest on who at the last minute had something that came up and we could not connect this morning. I also wanted to share with you an email that I got from Donna Gilmore. This was very interesting. Evidently, these casts, the title of her email was City Council Delays Decision to Reject Coastal Commission Permit. They are talking about transporting the contaminated waste down there in San Onofre. And one of the things that she has been advocating is that we need to get thick casts there. And the Coastal Commission is really just about to start citing. I mean, the pressure on these people to just click their heels. Let me see if I can go to her website and dig in and just ignore it is just astounding. Here we go. This is so unbelievable. Nuclear waste, the issues. Let's go to nuclear waste issues. How about that one? That's always a really good one to look at because this is what affects all of us everywhere is the nuclear waste. Okay, so let's see. What does this one say? I wonder if she's updated it. Okay, San Onofre storage containers may start leaking radiation into the environment as early as 2020, possibly sooner. The NRC reported a similar container at the Coburg nuclear plant in South Africa failed after 17 years from chloride-induced stress, corrosion, cracking, CISCC. They actually even give that an acronym, you guys. Chloride-induced stress corrosion cracking. Wow, triggered by corrosive salt in the marine environment. That's kind of like what happens exactly on the coast, isn't it? Coburg is located in a similar corrosive marine environment as San Onofre. Onshore winds and surf and frequent fog. The Coburg container crack depth was 0.61 inches. Wow, over a half an inch. The San Onofre canisters are 0.625 inches thick, folks. So if that crack happened, it would be bye-bye. There are over 2,000 loaded canisters in the U.S. 2,000. Most are 1/2 inch thick. San Onofre started loading canisters with spent fuel in 2003. So they have created this disaster since 2003. If San Onofre canisters have experienced similar to Coburg, that means a canister at the San Onofre would start releasing radiation into the environment as early as 2020. And I think the bottom line, I think the main message that we get is they don't care. This is really the issue, isn't it? That really none of that matters. They can do pretty much what they want to do. Wow. So let's Google in and let's take a look at the Hanford. Let's take a look and see what Hanford is doing. Hanford News 2017. Let's just see that. Here's a news report from the Tri-City Herald, which is actually doing such a great job. Oh, listen to this. Oh, dear. March 30th, 2017. I love this title. Workers demolish site of nuclear mishap in Washington state. It's a mishap. Oops. Just a little mishap. Federal officials say workers at the Hanford Nuclear Reservation in Washington state have finished demolishing the site of a famous nuclear accident during the Cold War. That was a little mishap. Wow. What date was this? March 30th, 2017. So it just happened a month ago. Workers at the Hanford Nuclear Reservation in Washington state have finished demolishing the site of a famous nuclear accident during the Cold War that exposed a man to the highest dose of radiation from the plutonium byproduct americium ever recorded, the U.S. Department of Energy announced Thursday. The Mikulski Room was named after Harold Mikulski, who in 1976 survived the horrifying accident and died 11 years later of, quote, unrelated causes after becoming known as the Atomic Man. Right, he died of unrelated causes. The contractor, I wonder what he died from. I'm going to take his name. What did he die from? Harold McCluskey, okay. Unrelated causes. A contractor recently demolished the room, the first of 4 main buildings that are made up of the plutonium finishing plant complex that will be torn down. Completing demolition on this building was years in the making and is both historic and significant risk reduction, says Tom Taynor, project director for the Department of Energy. Hanford, located in southeastern Washington, began making most of the plutonium for the nation's nuclear arsenal during World War II. Plutonium production, which has a half-life of 27,500 years, has ended, and the site is now engaged in a massive cleanup of nuclear waste. That work is expected to take decades and cost billions with the B of dollars. That's taxpayer dollars, folks, not private dollars. One of the most heavily contaminated portions of the site, half the size of Rhode Island, is the plutonium finishing plant where plutonium was converted into hockey puck shaped discs and shipped to factories where nuclear weapons were being assembled. Oh, wow. The 64-year-old McCluskey was working in the plant on August 30th, 1976, when a chemical reaction in his glove box produced an explosion that blew out the glass and contaminated him. The glove box is a device in which people use large gloves to handle dangerous materials that are under glass. McCluskey was exposed to 500 times the occupational standard for americium-241. He was struck by a mixture of nitric acid, broken glass, americium, and other materials. After the explosion, he had his clothes removed, then washed with water and transferred to a decontamination facility where he was washed again and given medicine to purge the radioactivity. Because of the risk to other individuals, Mikulski was placed in isolation at the Hanford Emergency Decontamination Facility for 5 months. By then, his body's radiation count had fallen by 80% and he was released. Mikulski's friends avoided him, and his minister finally had to tell people it was safe to be around him. Mikulski largely avoided the media, but he did speak in favor of developing nuclear power. I guess he did. He died of coronary artery disease. He had the disease before the accident, And an autopsy found no signs of cancer, but that does not tell us about all the other medical conditions that he had. So let's take a look at let's ask the Googles what the size of, what was that state? Half the size of Rhode Island, I think it said, right? Half the size of Rhode Island. A minor half the size. That is just unbelievable. So let's go here and take a look. How big? Let's ask the Googles. I love the Googles, man. We were talking about the Googles in class yesterday because it is so oppressive. How big is Rhode Island? So let's just see. 1,212 square miles. So I guess we're talking about 600 square miles. That's the size. That's how big it was. Wow. You like the way, this is really interesting, the way they frame these things. One of the most heavily contaminated portions of the site, half the size of Rhode Island, is the plutonium finishing plant, where plutonium was converted into hockey puck shaped discs and shipped to factories. How big is Rhode Island? Rhode Island's area is 1,212 square miles. So you're telling me that this processing plant is 600 square miles? For real? That means how big is the Hanford site? I mean, for real, how big is the Hanford site? Let's see how big that is. Because that's unbelievable. How can that be? It's 586 square miles. So something isn't right in this reporting of this story, but that figures. Let's see. Workers, this is from Washington News. Well, they got their story incorrecto, man. Because the Hanford site is 586 square miles. So are they telling us that the entire nuclear site is contaminated? The whole entire site? Half the size of Rhode Island? So something's not right here. So this is what happens, folks, when you start digging into this. This is how I end up doing this radio show, because day after day, I just like follow simple links. I just like kind of want some answers. Unbelievable. I'm going to pull out some documents here. Hold on, I'm going to mess with some papers. I have a whole stack of scientific studies and journals and things like that that I've referred to throughout the year. And I've come to this before, but this to me, it's called The Safety of Nuclear Power by Dr. Alvin M. Weinberg. This was released October 25th, 2006. This is a copy of a speech that he gave in 1972. So why did they keep it secret? We don't know. So this is their logic. This is the first thing that they're telling us. Result in a nuclear priesthood. Listen to this. Now we're talking about the explosion of a nuclear, the plutonium facility, right? So this is what made me think about it. In this speech, he gave this whole section on waste disposal. The waste from nuclear reactors will permit radioactivity for an extremely long time. Plutonium-239 has a half-life of 24,400 years. I was off a little bit. And waste containing this nuclide will remain potentially dangerous for 200,000 years. When one speaks of the long-term reliability of nuclear systems, then in the broadest sense, one must be prepared to address the question of coping with such waste responsibly for items longer than mankind has ever had to conceive of his works affecting. Thus, two fundamentally different philosophies have developed with respect to dealing with these waste. The most obvious is to store them as rock-like solids in concrete vaults above ground, which they're not doing that either. This is one of the systems that the AEC has under serious consideration, at least for the present. Now remember, this was written in 1972. Now, vault storage is perfectly feasible and extremely safe, certainly at least as safe as the reactors themselves. Qualifying it, at least as safe. However, if one thinks about it for a moment, the prolonged storage in vaults of waste containing plutonium-239 require a long-term commitment by highly intelligent managers of such waste systems. Thus, the price exacted by permanent disposal of waste in concrete vaults may be a commitment to a priesthood that will tend the vaults for times unimaginably longer than the time scale of any previous human endeavor. A commitment to a priesthood, folks. That alchemy is exactly what they're doing to us right now. I don't know about you, but this just absolutely infuriates me. It is for this reason that the Atomic Energy Commission views concrete vault storage as temporary, say 50 to 100 years, and has actively pursued the second approach, that of disposal in underground geologic formations. Wasn't that the first story I just read to you from the EPA? That's what they're doing. They're talking to people in South Dakota about putting their information in all of these things in injection well draft permit areas. That's what they're talking about, folks. That is infuriating. They're sticking with this story, even though we have had over, 50 years of knowing that it's not going to work. But they're still doing it. I mean, what is wrong with these people? Maybe they're not people. Let me get back to this guy's speech because it is stunning. This is still the attitude by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The great advantage of underground disposal in naturally occurring geologic formations is that in principle, the waste could be sequestered there forever out of contact with the biosphere. And moreover, no human monitoring would be required once the wastes were in place. Wow. Bedded salt comes very close to being the ideal geological formation, as the National Academy of Science recommended in 1955. For example, the Kansas salt deposits have been undisturbed for 200 million years. Kansas salt deposits have been undisturbed for 200 million years. I bet you they haven't left it alone since then. Their continued presence means that we have not been in contact with circulating groundwater, for otherwise the beds would have been dissolved. Wow. Wow. I can't believe these people are willing to kill our planet. I'm just shocked. And indeed, the salt beds are in every respect except one without fault. The only clear weakness of salt for radioactive waste disposal is that one must guarantee that man does not intervene by digging holes for oil, for example. Oh, Lord, I hate these people. I don't want to hate anybody, but I just can't stand them. Holes in the salt might allow water to enter the mine, and the integrity of the salt deposit could not then be guaranteed. So this is what caused the waste processing plant in Carlsbad to collapse. It was really them drilling holes all over the place. And the explosion. And at the Science March, there was people there holding up signs saying that nuclear is the new science, telling us that we have to go towards nuclear waste. This is unbelievable. This is just unbelievable. I am just stunned. I don't think I read you this one either. Public notice administrative rec for the Dewey Burdock injection well, class 3 and injection wells. Yes, I think I did. Yeah, the Wyoming and South Dakota border. That's right. So, my goodness. Here's April 3rd. Fukushima Daiichi status updates by the IAEA. Let's see what these paid liars, these genociders, these murderers are saying. This is unconscionable. Let's hear what they're going to say. The IAEA, April 3rd, 2017. Japan provided the IAEA with a copy of a report on the discharge record and the seawater monitoring at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station during March, when the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has sent to all international missions in Japan. The report contains information on discharges from the sub-drain and groundwater drain systems, as well as on groundwater bypassing conducted during the month of, so groundwater bypassing must be a term, during the month of March. In both cases, in advance of the action, TEPCO analyzes the quality of the groundwater to be discharged and announces the results. These results confirm that the radiation levels sample water are substantially below the target set by TEPCO. Wow. There's another one. On March 27th, Japan provided the IAEA with a copy of a report on the progress of investigation inside Unit 1 PCV at Fukushima Daiichi. The full report is here. So let's see what they're going to say. Let me open up the report here. Let me get rid of some of this news here. Stunning. It's a little stunning to realize how we are just literally being sold down the river, as they say. It's unbelievable. Oh dear, here I am, there I am. Okay, let me get this report opened. Well, thank you for listening to me this morning, and this is kind of on the fly. I had to just think something up. Carl Grossman will be back with us, I hope, within the next few weeks. And tomorrow we will be speaking with Matt Holstrunk, who does the EPA readings, and I have confirmed that, so I'm pretty sure he'll be here, resulting in otherwise something might happen. Subdrain, this is what this report say. Information 1500 April 3rd, 2017. Groundwater, subdrain and groundwater draining systems. This is all they do. It has not been observed. Let's say the results show that radiation levels in the seawater remain lower than the density limits specified by the reactor regulation, and significant change in the radioactivity has not been observed. Wow. Oh, so they have all the information in the back. Every single part of the sentence says everything's fine. Love it. Okay. Cesium-134 says not detectable, 0.68. Cesium-137, 0.53. You notice how they don't try to look for anything. I don't know what this means. It says gross and then like a B, but it's not a B. I have no idea what that means. That's a science term. So they're telling us that it is perfectly safe, that it's well below the acceptable limits, folks, so don't worry about it. None of these numbers are at all high at all. They all show very, very low levels. Density limit specified by regulation is 60 on cesium-137, cesium-134. 137 is 90. The World Health Organization guidelines for drinking water. Oh, listen to this. I hate these people. Oh my gosh, I can't stand them. So for reference, they have these operational targets, right? Cesium-134. The density limit specified by the reactor regulation is 60. Cesium-137 density limit specified by reactor regulation is 90. World Health Organization guidelines for drinking water quality is 10 in both cases. Wow. Strontium-90 is 30, and it's also 10. So the operational target of gross B, that number is a B, is 1 becquerel per liter in the survey, which was conducted once every 10 days. So becquerels per liter conducted is 9.1, sampling on March 17th. Wow. Now that kind of changes the numbers, doesn't it? You know, this is the most annoying part about all of it, is why do we have to even think about this? Why am I sitting on the radio talking about radioactive contamination? I mean, when they are sucking every country dry of money. They are taking everything they can as quickly as they can and lying and manipulating facts. It's like that story about this guy. Like, this is an actual story that says we had a nuclear explosion at Hanford that contaminated 600 square feet. But the entire area of the Hanford site is 586 square miles. So does that mean that the entire area was contaminated? I mean, how do we manage these half-truths? One of the most heavily contaminated portions of the site, half the size of Rhode Island, which is 600 square feet, is the plutonium finishing plant. So let's just find out that. That is the annoying part. What is the size of the, let me just, Mr. Google, I love Mr. Google because I can create a query and it can go, oh yeah, here's our version of the truth. Move these documents here. Hello, Mr. Googles. I have clients who tell me that the Googles is evil. Really? Tell me a search engine that is not evil or controlled by the NSA. For real. How big is, and then let's paste that whole little phrase so we make sure at Hanford. Hanford. So will it tell us? I don't know. Bum, bum, bum. Mr. Wikipedia has some information on it. And the hanfordsite.gov. Let's open up that. So, wow, an hour goes very quickly. What does it say how big it is? It does not. The Hanford site does not talk about how big it is. It sure does look big. The plutonium finishing plant is actually a complex consisting of more than 60 buildings. 60, folks. Ultimately, all of these structures are to be contaminated and demolished as Hanford cleanup continues. So is that what they were destroying? That's what they were talking about. They finally knocked them all down. Let's see how big it is. Let's go to the Mr. Wikipedia if they'll tell us how big this was. Oh dear, I don't think so. The nuclear industry sort of pretty much. History doesn't tell us. To other sites, it doesn't tell us. The square footage. They're not giving that information up there, folks. Plutonium finishing plant. Here's a PDF I found. Now, this is the annoying part. We think we're getting a story, and then what? Then we're not. We're, I guess we're on a need-to-know basis. Oh, that thing did not work. They closed it up. Area 700. I'm on the Hanford Richland Hanford site. It's hanford.gov. And I'm looking at the facility and trying to figure out what the area is. But there are over 60 plants there. Wow. At this facility, the plutonium that has been extracted in a liquid form from irradiated fuel rods at Hanford was processed into a solid form. Crews took the plutonium nitrate solution and made solid hockey puck-sized plutonium buttons, and the plutonium oxide powder could then be shipped to the country's weapons production facilities. Those are PFPs, folks, just in case you want to know. Another acronym to keep you happy. This is stunning. What does this say? The facility armed security, blah, blah, blah. No. While the decontamination work continues and decontaminated equipment is still being removed, crews can now shift their attention to the demolition of the 60 buildings associated with the PFP complex. That's right. The energy plans to have the PFP to slab on grade by 2017. Mission accomplished. I guess that's good. Let's go to their newsroom and see what they're telling us, because this is kind of a shock. Let's see. Press releases. Let's open up one of the press releases at Hanford. Oh, you know what we should do? We should do the same thing with Indian Point, too. How do you like this? Hanford Cleanup Tour registration begins in April. Really? Oh, my goodness gracious. Really? They're going to let us go tour. We get to tour the Hanford site, the cleanup waste site. What is this telling us? Department of Energy. Wow, the public tour focuses on environmental cleanup and provides guests with an in-depth look at several key aspects that support today's cleanup efforts and include briefings on several Hanford facilities. Hanford Cold Test Facility, a scaled version of one of Hanford's 177 underground nuclear waste storage tanks. 177 underground nuclear waste storage tanks. We just read about what Dr. Alvin Weinberg said about that, right? Stunning. The Environmental Restoration Disposal Facility. A regulated and lined landfill where nearly 18 million tons of Hanford's low-level radioactive, hazardous, and mixed waste are being disposed. 177 underground nuclear waste storage tanks, 18 million tons of radioactive waste. Hanford's plutonium finishing plant operated from 1949 to 1989 and represented the final step in plutonium production effort at Hanford. Okay, workers are now undertaking the monumental challenge of demolishing the building. So it took them a long time to decide to demolish the building. The 324 Building Disposition Project, where preparations are underway to remove the highly radioactive soil beneath the building to allow for the building's eventual demolition. The 324 Building Disposition Project. So that means that they can't even destroy the building. They cannot do a demolition because it's too radioactive. To remove the highly radioactive soil beneath the building. How do you remove the soil beneath the building without destroying the building first? That's interesting. Okay, this is also where you're going to tour. If you take this tour, folks, you're going to go to 618 to 610, one of Hanford's most complex and hazardous sites, which received radioactive waste from Hanford's fuel fabrication and research laboratories and development facilities during the production era. Workers are now removing waste from the 7.5-acre burial ground for disposal. Burial ground for disposal, 7.5. Workers are now removing waste from. So what are they doing it for? Where are they moving it to? That doesn't give us much information. The 200 West groundwater treatment system, which combines several technologies to remove chemical, radioactive, and organic contaminants before returning treated water to the ground through a network of wells. Oh my God. I hate these people. I mean, I know I'm not supposed to hate. I know that that's a lower level energy, but these people make me want to spit nails. This is their plan. This is their plan. They're actually going to give us a tour. They're proud of this. Wow. Okay, and one more place where we get to go tour at this tour, if you want to go to this tour at Hanford, folks. The waste treatment and immobilization plant, which when completed will be the world's largest facility for turning millions of gallons of liquid radioactive waste into a stable glass form suitable for safe, permanent disposal. Tour participants must be U.S. citizens and at least 18 years of age. Government-issued photo identification is required for each tour participant and must be presented prior to receiving a badge. Tour participants from some states, including Washington, may be required to provide 2 forms of ID to meet the badging requirements. Wow, so if you live in Washington State, you have to have 2 forms of ID, so bring your passport. I am not kidding you. This makes me spit nails. Oh, the tours. These are the tour dates, folks, so mark your calendar, plan your summer vacation. Hanford Site Cleanup Tour dates, May 3, 9, 23, and 24, June 6, 7, 14, 20, 27, July 11, 12, 19, and 25, August 2, 8, 16, 22, and 30, and September 12 and 13th. Wow. Somebody actually had to write this up. I mean, 177 underground nuclear storage tanks. You know what? I don't know if I want to expose myself to that much radioactivity. I was going to say maybe I'll just go on one of these tours, but I don't think I want to go. Like, this is just asking for trouble. We're going to trust them to tell us what's safe and what's not safe. I don't think so, folks, because we already know it's not safe. That is just unbelievable. And there's nothing coming out of Fukushima. It's all silent. Chernobyl, all silent. You know, unbelievable. 586 square miles. So this is what happens when you start questioning what you're reading in newspaper articles. Like just that whole idea, it's half the size of New Hampshire. Really? New Hampshire is 1,200 square feet. The whole site of the entire site is 586 square miles. So what's real? That is probably real. Probably the whole thing, when it did blow up, probably really did contaminate the whole entire facility. I mean, that is probably something that we can believe if it really was a nuclear meltdown. This is just sad. This is really sad. Oh, and the workers successfully bring down the historic McCluskey room in Hanford. That was told on March 30th. And don't worry, he didn't die, but let's not talk about how sick he was for the rest of his life, right? Wow, that is unbelievable. Okay, folks. Well, look, I appreciate you hanging in there with me. We've got just a few minutes left. You've been listening to Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. I'm hoping that soon I'll have the time to remake my introduction because I'm on 5 days a week now, not 3. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sick of that music. So, I mean, I picked that music specifically because it reminded me of the nuclear industry, just worn out lies. But you know, we are definitely assets on a balance sheet, and that has been shown to us more and more and more. And they honestly do not care what we think, what we do. Our elected officials are not investigating known crimes. I encourage you to call up Senator Burr and demand that he ask for witnesses to find out how close Mike Flynn really was to the Russians and what they really knew, because we're talking about treason. These people, he was a military man taking money from the Russians. So put your courage feet on. Please lean into our democracy. We need every single person to decide that we're going to attempt to save our planet and our Mother Earth and our Father Sky. We have been under assault for at least 100 years. I mean, full-on hard battery. And now we have a batterer-in-chief running the United States of America, and it is frightening. Put your courage feet down. Lean into it. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
This is Ozzy Scape.